So a couple of rules just to keep in mind whenever we simplify radicals. One that when we're trying to simplify radicals, we're talking about positive lengths. So in this case, n is going to be a positive integer greater than 1, and both a and b are both also real numbers or positive real numbers. And so we start. So we have four main properties that we want to focus on. And so the first one, I want to take your attention, and sometimes that's written as a to the power of n and to the power of 1 over n. And so whenever this happens, if we would think back to algebra and our exponent rules, whenever that happens, we multiply them, right? So we would end up with n over n, but n over n is just 1, or it's just a to the power of 1, which again is just a, right? So that's how we get from here to here. And it's kind of the same concept for all the other ones, right? So here they are multiplying, and so we can distribute, and then in either way or in either one of these we can always go back and forth, right? So if we start here, then if they have the same index, then we can go back to this way, right? And so same for the fraction. If we start off with one big square root, we can split it up into two smaller ones, or vice versa. If we start with two smaller ones, then we can make one big one. And this last one here, if we're ever adding, by the way, you can only add or subtract if they have the same square root. If they do have the same square root, then the number in front is the number that we add, right? We can also simplify by kind of removing the common term or the like term, and which is this right here, right? One thing I do want to talk to you guys about is that's not on here, like that. For most of the time, whenever we just see a square root, let's just say square root of 2. Well, let's keep this with. Whenever we see that, then even though we don't see a number here, then we assume that it's to the power of 1/2. Or that number right there, that n, is equal to 2. Okay. So let's take a look at our first problem, right? So so here, because we have no number, we're looking for 2, right? So that 2 is telling you that in order for you to bring out something outside of the square root, it's got to be a pair. So for example, if you type in the square root of 144 in the calculator, it gives you 12, right? So that's equal to 12. The reason for that is because if you break this down, right, so we're thinking two numbers that multiply to give you 144 is 12 and 12. So because we have a set of 12s here, a 12 goes out and there's nothing left that's going to stay inside the square root, and so that's why we get a 12, right? So think of it this way: every pair inside makes one of those numbers outside, and when I say inside, I mean inside the square root. Now let's say that we couldn't think of 12 and 12. Well, we know it's an even number, so 2 goes in there, right? So 2 times what is equal to 144. So 2 times number is not going to give you 1, but 14 divided by 2 is 7, which gives you 14, and then we have a 2 there. And we kind of use that 144, so we're going to scratch it off, right? And then we can further break down this 72. Again, if we can't think of big numbers, well, we know because 2 goes in there because it's a even number, and so 2 times what is equal to 72. So 7 divided by 2, we can fit 3 in there, have a remainder of 1. So now we're looking at 12 divided by 2, which is 6. And then once again, we can further break down this 36 to, let's say, 6 and 6. Now remember, we're looking for pairs, right? So yes, I can further break down the 6 and the 6, but since I have a pair of 6s there, we can pause, right? So this pair of 6 means I bring a 6 outside the square root, and these pair of 2s means we bring out a 2. Now, because we're bringing it outside or in front of the square root, then we simply multiply these together, and then we also get 12. And since there was nothing left over, then that's as far as we can take it. So this also breaks down to 12. So notice how on the first one, we stopped once we had a pair of 12s, and that was that. The other one, we broke it down a little bit further, but in the end, we got the same answer, right? So let's take a look at this one, right? So 150, once again, I can't really think of two numbers, so we know it's an even number, or it ends with a 0, so we're going to try 10. So 10 times 15 is 150. And I can further break down both of these, right? So here, two numbers that multiply to 10 are 2 and 5. Two numbers that multiply to 15 are 5 and 3, right? So perfect example here. So I have a pair of 5s. So a 5 comes out, and this 2 and that 3 did not have a pair, so it's going to stay inside my square root, and we're going to multiply those two numbers together. And so when I multiply, I get a final answer of 5 square roots of 6. And so that is what the square root of 150 simplifies down to.